Good evening from New York. Quoting one GOP operative, careful scrutiny, yes, a holy war against her, Judge Sotomayor, not unless your name is Rush, Rove, or Huckabee, none of whom votes in the United States Senate. Our fifth story on the countdown, the GOP smear campaign against the Supreme Court judge nominee morphing into an intra-party war, Republican versus Republican. Two-thirds of party insiders, including Senator Cornyn, RNC Chair Steele, and columnists Charles Krauthammer and Peggy Noonan, all saying enough is enough. The rest responding, it's our party and we'll hate if we want to. Day 4 of the Sotomayor nomination story, the day the Republican Party started to implode. Again, 64% of those Republican political insiders surveyed by the National Journal saying don't fight the Sotomayor nomination. It is not politically smart. Senator Cornyn of Texas, a member of the Judiciary Committee, telling National Public Radio that it is time for Republicans who are not elected officials, like, say, Limbaugh and Gingrich, to butt out.
I think it's terrible. This is not the kind of tone that any of us want to set when it comes to performing our constitutional responsibilities of advice and consent. Neither one of these men are elected Republican officials. I just don't think it's appropriate. I certainly don't endorse it. I think it's wrong.
Republican Party Chair Michael Steele guest hosting Bill Bennett's radio show this morning and repeatedly saying that Republicans should be hailing the historic nature of President Obama's pick for the Supreme Court, adding that the GOP needs to stop slamming and ramming on Judge Sotomayor. Washington Post columnist Krauthammer warning his fellow right-wingers to stop their conservative attacks. Quote, what should a principled conservative do? Use the upcoming hearings not to deny her the seat, but to eliminate her views. The argument should be elevated, respectful, and entirely about judicial philosophy. Peggy Noonan adding that it's time to leave child's play behind, or at least pretend to. Quote, let's play grown-up. When I was a child, that's what we said when we ran out of things to do, like playing Potsy or throwing rocks in the vacant lot. You'd go in and take your father's hat and your mother's purse and walk around saying, would you like tea? In retrospect, we weren't imitating our parents, but parents on TV who wore pearls and suits. But the point is, we amused ourselves trying to be little adults. And that's what the GOP should do right now, play grown-up. Close enough for most, unattainable for some. We join Megalomania Today, already in progress.
I don't need lectures from any columnist or any commentator on TV about decorum. The real question here that needs to be asked, and nobody on our side, from a columnist to a TV commentator to anybody in our party, has the guts to ask, how can a president nominate such a candidate? And how can a party get behind such a candidate? That's what would be asked if somebody were foolish enough to nominate David Duke or pick somebody even less offensive.
Mr. Bouncy Bouncy believing Judge Sotomayor is comparable to a former chief of the Ku Klux Klan for her comments about race and gender, presumably also branding Justice Sandra Day O'Connor as the equivalent of a KKK leader. She said something similar to what Sotomayor did. She said it in 1981. In an interview then with the Ladies' Home Journal soon after she was appointed, Justice O'Connor having said, quote, I bring to the court the perspective of a woman, primarily in a sense that I am female, just as I am white, a college graduate, etc. Yes, I will bring the understanding of a woman to the court, but I doubt that that alone will affect my decisions. Oddly, the only real hits on Judge Sotomayor today on this issue coming from the White House itself, which seemed to be behind the curve. Press Secretary Robert Gibbs, possibly not having read the entirety of Sotomayor's remarks from 2001, saying this afternoon that the judge used a poor choice of words when she suggested a Latina might reach a better conclusion than a white male in a given case. He would not elaborate. In an interview with Brian Williams, his boss, the president, did elaborate, making it clear that he has read the entire speech.
I'm sure she would have restated it, but if you look in the entire sweep of the essay that she wrote, what's clear is that she was simply saying that her life experiences will give her information about the struggles and hardships that people are going through that will make her a good judge.
The president's comments coming at the end of a week of nonstop, albeit baseless, attacks on the nominee, Judge Sotomayor, attacks from all, mostly white, mostly male, comers.
They're just like, hey, Hispanic chick lady, you're empathetic? She says, yep. They say, you're in.
Is she the most activist nominee in the history of the court? This president, who promised to unite the country during the campaign, has selected the most divisive nominee possible.
As racial allegations surface and controversy spreads over her reputation, what's the truth about Obama's nominee?
she is a Marxist. The quote in her yearbook at Princeton is from a socialist.
I'm not really certain how intellectually strong she will be. You know, people who are familiar with the workings of the court said that she was combative, opinionated, argumentative. She's not going to be somebody who's going to bring broad intellectual powers.
I think you can make the case that she's one of those who has benefited from affirmative action over the years tremendously.
Maybe so. Did she get into Princeton on affirmative action? One wonders.
One wonders.
I don't know if this is true or not. This is one piece of analysis that I heard today. She's not that intellectually bright, and she's almost a bully. She just loves to hear herself talk.
As a Latina woman, she said, I think as a Latina woman, I'd make better decisions than a white man. It's offensive, it's racist, it's sexist.
And it is a racist statement.
I mean, that's racist.
That's a racist statement.
I don't like the charges of, well, you're a racist, they're a racist. Very few people are racist. There are racists and they're bad people, but most Americans are good, just decent people, and I hate the charges and cries of racism.
I think the woman is a racist.
She sure sounds like a racist.
I think she's a racist.
If you belong to an organization called La Raza, in this case, which is, from my point of view anyway, just nothing more than a Latino, it's a counterpart, it's a Latino KKK without the hoods or the nooses. If you belong to something like that, you have to explain that in a way that's going to convince me and a lot of other people that it's got nothing to do with race.
Here you have a racist. She's an angry woman. She's a bigot. She's a racist. A woman, as a judge, makes a blatantly racist, bigoted comment. She is rewarded with a promotion to the Supreme Court. How do you get promoted in a Barack Obama administration? By hating white people.
Glenn Beck questioning somebody's intellect. Time now to call in our own political analyst, Richard Wolff. Richard, good evening.
Good evening, Keith.
I hate to make you follow that, but let's switch off here now to the White House reaction here today. The press office now saying the judge used a poor choice of words in her being a Latina and a judge comments. If the president is saying she would have restated her remarks if given another opportunity, do we expect the judge to speak to this herself now? And in doing this, did the White House not just put her on the spot for no particular reason?
Well, let's just separate out what is a normal, rational conversation and debate from what we've just heard. And, you know, it's always wonderful hearing people being outraged about race when they think, oh, I don't know, Barack the Magic Negro is funny, for instance. Yeah. So let's just set the freak show to one side for a minute and say, look, there is no question that given another opportunity, Judge Sotomayor would not be saying the kinds of provocative things she just said. And apologizing for them or saying that they were a poor choice of words is a very small thing to give up here. This isn't a legislative negotiation. This is someone who will be confirmed, barring something really unexpected in her personal life story. This is someone who's going to sail through. So looking reasonable here and setting the freak show out even more to an extreme is ultimately helpful. But it's not about caving. It's about being normal, I think.
But having said that, Justice O'Connor said something that between them, certainly Justice O'Connor and Justice Alito and even Justice Scalia have said things very similar. Certainly among them, they create a quote or a series of quotes very similar to what Sotomayor said in 2001. Hasn't the White House, if the White House hasn't caved on this important point, they're not fighting the battle on it? Is that the issue here?
Right. Yeah, and I don't think they need to fight a battle or would want to fight a battle when it comes down to these fake charges of racism. If you look at what she actually said, one piece of it is absolutely reasonable, and anyone would say the same thing, which is that a judge is a human being and they bring their life experiences to everything they do. There's no sort of Star Trek brain in a bottle somewhere that's making these judicial judgments. Where her problem comes in is that she compared her judgment to a white male, and really you just want to take cultural politics off the table. Frankly, it didn't work in the early 90s, it's not going to work now, but why create additional problems when really she's going to sail through?
I think we had a Captain Pike reference in there. Republican against Republican on this about a nomination that, as you point out, almost everybody agrees in both parties, going to succeed anyway. And the more reasonable conservatives are saying, make this be, to borrow a certain phrase, a teachable moment. Might the White House politically, in terms of letting the other side create its own cave-in, would they have been better served to let the fight go on a little longer?
Well, I think that fight is going to carry on anyway because the tone is so outrageous. I mean, never mind Glenn Beck and everyone else, but the idea that Karl Rove is saying he doesn't like people who are bullies, excuse me, did I miss the last 8 years? Let that play out. That's the teachable moment, and it will anyway. The question here is, what's the definition of activist? Apparently, you're only an activist if you have an opinion on the other side of the political divide. I think that's another teachable moment that will be fascinating to watch.
And don't forget, you're a socialist if you quoted Norman Thomas, who said, "I am not a champion of lost causes, but of causes not yet won," which is just this side of burn, baby, burn.
Yes, please. Thank you, Keith.